Welcome to the Natural History Cupboard. Come on in.
And welcome back to the Natural History Cupboard podcast, the place where the weird and wonderful parts of the natural world come together. We're back.
We have actually come back together.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm your host, Gareth, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Aaron. We're back. We're both healthy. We're here. One hell of a week. Well, I mean, not a great week, but it all came together in the end. Anyway,
Horrible.
we managed to put out that sort of mini episode for you guys. So
yes, well done.
hopefully you enjoyed that. It's one that I actually made a while ago, but had not done anything with.
Here's what I made up.
Well, sort of, yes. You could probably tell from just I think I look very different in it. But either way, it's a really cool thing that we wanted to cover, actually, is the migration of things. And I had Drew come up with the artwork for that one as well. So there's two versions of that, which you may have noticed in the actual video. One is of the stork minus the arrow through its neck. One is the stork with the arrow through its neck, the file stork. So yeah, it's a really cool concept and everything that came around it. So we might do more of those, but hopefully, we'll do them as a separate thing, not have to be off for a week for that to happen. So yeah.
No, you did well, considering it all fell apart. Like last minute it all fell apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, it's all back together now. We're good. So what have you been up to other than
how much detail do you want in this?
I don't want to know how what has been coming out of where, or how dead you've felt, but has anything wildlife wise happened to you within the last couple of days?
Actually, one of the most gutting things about missing out last week was actually me and my family had a really good wildlife kind of few days before the dominoes started to fall.
Yeah.
By dominoes, I mean the people. Because it was our daughter bump, and then my partner bump, and then me bump, like literally days after each other. And then, it was terrible.
So glad we did not record, otherwise it would have just got worse.
God, it was awful. But because we went back and forth on it, like what to do, because we were going to record. Because last week, this isn't a spoiler, because whilst you were off, I did tell them, for the Direwolf episode, I did tell them that it was going to be Grey Wolf. So that was going to be this week just gone.
Yeah.
But you would have had 3 people in 3 different places to keep us all
contamination free.
And that's not how I envisioned doing wolves and stuff. And anyway, I fell ill anyway, so it wouldn't have been able to be done anyway. But let's forget about the bad stuff. In the run up to that week, we did something a little bit naughty.
Oh yeah.
But
is this going to get us taken down or what? What are we looking at?
No, but I will say we spent time in a place where you're allowed to spend time.
This is sounding dodgier by the minute.
I'm just trying to work out how to say and what to say, really. But basically,
and not incriminate yourself.
There are some organizations that are supposed to look after certain areas of beauty and scientific interest.
Right.
They're not doing their job.
Okay.
And we were there picking up the litter that they aren't bothering to pick up.
Oh, okay.
So, yes. Anyway, whilst we were there, I managed to record some stuff, which was really cool. Some birds that I've never seen before.
Nice.
And one of which I've never heard before, and it was really cool hearing it. So, first of all, a cuckoo.
That's cool.
Cuckoo. That was amazing. That's not the bird I've never heard.
Ah.
Partially because I've heard them in fields, partially because it goes off every hour in the other room.
Yeah. Cuckoo clocks don't count.
Common cuckoo, beautiful bird. Really excited to hear that. Unfortunately, by the time I got my Merlin app out, it had gone to a tree on the far side of where we were.
Couldn't pick it up.
So yeah, couldn't pick it up. I did get meadow pipits.
Nice.
Which is one of the animals that I believe cuckoos will parasitize.
Yeah.
Parasitizers in their nests.
Yeah.
The other one that they will parasitize that I managed to get, where have you gone? It was the warbler.
Reed warbler?
The reed warbler, maybe, yeah.
Willow warbler?
The willow warbler, definitely. willow warbler, yeah.
Dartford warbler.
But I also got like it's a really nice one. Where was it? So the one that I didn't hit, I mean, I got reed buntings, I got rooks, all sorts. But the one that I'd never heard before is the common, which kind of rubs salt in the wound that I've not heard it before. The common grasshopper warbler.
Yeah.
Really cool. It sounds like a grasshopper.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah. I'll try and see if I can play it behind us. Another thing is, like for years, going back to when Drew was on this podcast with us and we were just audio.
Yeah.
And I was saying that I was seeing red kites every day, and it was kind of a running joke that I couldn't get photos of them and stuff. I finally got footage of them, which I'm playing.
Right.
So that was really cool because I got to see what I think might have been courtship. So in one video that I got, or a couple photos that I got, a jackdaw was basically mobbing this red kite, and he disappeared. And then he comes back later, and there's two red kites, and they seem to be doing some sort of like kind of
whirling around each other, sort of thing.
It's very cool, very cool. And then all that like joy and stuff was followed a few days later with the doom.
Fair enough. Wow.
But yeah, no, we survived, so it's all good. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've had a few bits and pieces going on, but the coolest thing literally happened today. But this morning, when I came out of my house, the very front of our house, where I wouldn't have thought you'd have a hedgehog, I found hedgehog poo directly in front of the front door.
Oh, yeah.
So evidently there's a hedgehog that has passed through our front garden, and I'm hoping, based on the sort of little track that's in our hedge, it's gone from one corner by the road and come from somebody else's garden, on another part of the street, and gone across our front drive, into the sort of bushes just below our window, and then I'm hoping it's gone under the back fence and into our back garden and off into the woodland, hopefully undisturbed by a cat. But it was definitely hedgehog poo. It's unmistakable as to what it looks like. Annoyingly, I didn't take a photo. I should have, but I probably looked very odd this morning. The moment I walked out the door, I went, "Ooh, hedgehog poo!" Grabbed some sticks, started pulling it apart, having a look what's in there. Just sort of with my backpack on and everything, sort of first thing of a morning, sort of down on my knees, like looking through hedgehog poo like some sort of weirdo. So yeah, I mean that was cool. I like finding things like that, and you can learn an awful lot from poo.
You can, yeah.
Yeah.
Hedgehogs don't have good sense for survival, though.
No, they're not. They're not.
Have I ever told you my hedgehog story?
No.
So it's still probably the last living hedgehog that I've seen.
Oh.
Sadly, because it was whilst I was still working at Knowsley.
Okay.
So I was sat right up against the mesh. I had the tigress.
I think you have actually told me this.
About a meter and a half away from me, just lying down there, chilling out, chuffing away to me. I'm chuffing back, and I'm so focused on this tiger because I'm very obsessed by tigers.
I mean, it's a large orange cat, so yeah.
So focused on this tiger, and then suddenly there's this little movement in my kind of lower peripheral that I know. So I look down, and on the tiger's side of the fence is a hedgehog trying to push its way through the mesh with the most help me, I've put myself in a bad position face that I've ever seen. Like, I've never seen anyone so terrified in my life.
Well, I'm not surprised.
I'm anthropomorphizing like massively, but that was a look of fear. This tiger hadn't yet noticed that he was there.
Nobody look. It will notice.
Like, honestly, it wouldn't have surprised me if he'd suddenly just gone, oh, the game's up. Just hold it. Excuse me, sir. You're really going to have to let me out of here. Yeah, it was funny. They don't, of all the places to be, that was a big tiger enclosure. And he was right next to him.
Did he survive?
No idea.
Oh, okay.
No idea. By the time I could get into the tiger enclosure, like, tigers are locked away and I can get in there and I've got a buddy and it's all safe. No sign of him.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it didn't get eaten.
I was going to say, I imagine if he met a tigery end, then one of my tigers would have
a lot of quills in its mouth. Yeah, wouldn't be good. No, they're an animal. I mean, ever since watching The Animals of Farthing Wood, That pretty much cemented in my head the thought that hedgehogs are not great at their own survival in some ways. If you haven't seen that as a series, first off, well, you're clearly not the same age as us. But it's one of those cartoon series that I think shaped our generation, certainly of British kids, because I don't think it was shown overseas much. If you have seen it, let us know. And how horrific some of those parts are, because the hedgehogs just roll up on the road and get run over. You've got newts that don't want to leave and end up getting their water poisoned. Was it the pheasants get shot?
Yeah,
I mean, kind of typical, I suppose. Then, oh god, it's one of those shows that was a little bit like Watership Down is probably the closest thing you could count it to, which is horrific to put anyone through in some ways. Anyway, we are very much diverging there. So, shall we head into our news for this week?
Let's do it.
It's the news!
Right, well, we're into this week's news. Aaron, what are we looking at?
Well, the first article comes to us from BBC News, and it's actually more of me just kind of throwing this out there for your guys' interest, more than kind of reporting on a headline.
Mm-hmm.
The title of it is "Watch as People Try to Help 1.5-meter Shark on Shoreline."
Nice.
So, a 5-foot paw beagle shark was rescued by beachgoers near Aberystwyth. The species can grow up to 11 foot, so people are being warned to take care to avoid accidental injury, despite this species being pretty chilled out.
And you'd have to go out into the ocean, for it to even see you. Yeah,
but well done picking it up and putting it back in the sea,
definitely.
and not taking your Facebook photos.
Yeah. So my first one comes from BBC Wiltshire, and it's the fact that Longleat has bred critically endangered magnolia snails. 300 are left in the world, and these are one of 8 giant magnolia snails. However, if the reason why this particular news article caught my interest, listening to the news one morning as driving to work, I heard them say, and this was just before we were about to do our Paracetherium episode, and I was thinking about Mongolian animals. They went, some rare Mongolian snails have been bred at Longleat. So I spent ages looking for rare Mongolian snails being bred. Couldn't find a damn thing, and then realized the BBC News reporter didn't know the difference between the word Mongolia and Magnolia. So there you go.
My second article comes to us from Raptor Persecution UK, and the headline is "Why Should Wildlife Lose to Businesses Underpinned by Criminal Activity?" Mark Carwadine on driven grouse shooting for BBC Wildlife magazine. This is his opinion piece that he put in, and he's quite right. The latest big name in wildlife conservation to speak out against driven grouse shoots is, as I say, Mark Carwadine, who says, and I quote, "All sorts of wildlife is mercilessly trapped, snared, shot, and sometimes poisoned on grouse moors." And the article is quite literally him hitting out at grouse shoots.
Yeah,
rightly so.
More power to him. So our next one comes from BBC Cornwall. I'm going with all the smaller BBC ones this week. And it's Master of Disguise. A very rare lichen running spider has been spotted at temperate rainforest sites near Looe in Cornwall. And, well, the picture of it is stunning. It's this beautifully fluffy white spider that blends in with the lichen that it's sitting on. Essentially like a crab spider, the ones that hide to catch their prey. So really cool species that lives in our Celtic rainforests, basically.
Yeah, nice. And last headline from me, comes to us from Canarian Weekly. 16-meter dead whale discovered off the coast of Gran Canaria. This is not to depress people, by the way. It's very interesting. The whale was a fin whale, which, unsurprisingly for a member of the second largest species on Earth, weighed around 15 tons. The whale was spotted 5 kilometers east of the Puerto de San Cristobal, and was towed to Puerto de las Palmas de Gran Canaria, where it was lifted for necropsy by the Canary Islands Wildlife Recovery Centre.
No one ever blows them up anymore, you know? That's a real shame. I think you've got a dead whale, just do what they did in that very funny clip in the 1970s, pack it full of dynamite, and then run as flaming bits of whale carcass land on you. No showmanship these days. What can I say? My final one is not about flaming whale carcasses. It's from the Bangkok Post, actually. Its wildlife authorities have confirmed a rare sighting of the endangered Malayan tiger, which you have the scientific name for.
Panthera tigris jacksoni. But that was when the subspecies was split.
Yeah.
Now
it might be considered different.
It's definitely different. I can't remember, but it'll be the same as Bengal and Amur tiger.
Okay.
The only one that is different is Sumatran tiger.
Well, it's where it's been spotted is quite cool, because this endangered Malayan tiger has been spotted in southern Thailand. So good news for tiger recovery. I didn't even think tigers were in Thailand anymore.
They do. They do have them in Thailand. There was
other than Tiger Temple,
where one of the bits of jungle that I got to see in Thailand, there were tigers present. Didn't see anything, didn't hear anything.
Yeah,
but we saw more evidence and such of, as you know, when I was in Malaysia. But yes, they are there they weren't there in Tiger. They are there in Thailand.
Well, there you go.
And that's our headlines for this week. If you guys have anything of interest that you'd like us to share in the news section, send it in to us, and we'll either put it in the headlines or we'll talk about it in the main article. And the main article is with me this week. It's not really an article, more of a little bit of a discussion of a very happy piece of news, and that's that Sir David Attenborough turned 99 this week. So
indeed,
happy birthday to David Attenborough.
Well, by the time this comes out, it will be a week after that point. So belated birthday.
And obviously, he probably does not watch this.
No, but if you are watching,
I'm sure you
please get
hang on our every word.
Yeah,
but I just thought it was worth shouting out someone who's very clearly influenced both of our lives,
definitely,
in profound ways. His first ever broadcast for BBC. Do you know what it was?
Well, it wouldn't have been a wildlife thing, because he was the Director General, I believe, for a period before doing the Zoo Quest. I'm going to say it's something sport based. I don't know. Go on.
No, his first ever kind of thing as a producer for the BBC was actually coelacanth, which was in 1952.
What, the discovery of the coelacanth?
The rediscovery of the coelacanth.
Yeah, cool.
So that was really cool. I've not seen anything about that.
No,
other than knowing that it's there. But I just wonder, like, have you
ever watched any of the Zoo Quest episodes?
Yeah, bits and pieces. Yeah, they're very interesting.
It's a very, very different world than today, but still cool to watch.
Very very strange to see him, because he kind of always had that voice.
Yeah.
But it's so strange to see him like as a strapping, clearly very strong dude.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing him, very old footage of him diving with the tank and the mask and everything.
Like 1950s, 1960s scuba equipment, which is ridiculously oversized.
I think that was the Great Barrier Reef. But I was just wondering, like, what's your favorite thing that David Attenborough's been a part of?
I think the one that always stuck in my mind, and it's not actually the first DVD that I ever bought. Now, this is mostly because I did have some VHSs, but I can remember buying, like, making a very big thing of when DVDs came out. This is, making me sound old. Is going out and buying a DVD player, and I know I wanted to buy at the same time a DVD to go with it, obviously, because it didn't come with a DVD. I wanted to buy Life of Birds.
Life of Birds,
but
yeah.
I couldn't afford Life of Birds at the time. I could afford the DVD player, and I could afford Life in the Freezer, which is one of his first ones of the polar regions. So I ended up with that, watching that one. But shortly after that, I was able to afford to buy Life of Birds, and in my mind, Life of Birds has always been that one that's stuck in my head. That I can always remember watching. That and Life of Plants.
Life of Plants was good.
I mean, there isn't a bad wildlife documentary that he's done.
No, but there are certainly ones that stand out.
Very much so.
For example, I would say my joint second place for me would be Prehistoric Planet, and
completely forgot about that.
And what was it called? Was it Blue Planet 1 and 2?
Oh yeah, Blue Planet.
Very good. But the one that always stands out to me, because I remember watching this and just thinking like the film work for this was groundbreaking, was Tigers Spy in the Jungle, where they put the camera. And that was around the time that they were experimenting with
all these robo camera things. Yeah.
You had like Poo Cam, which I think was for lions, maybe.
Yeah.
Log Cam, which was for Asian elephants. Just brilliant. There's also I've been trying to find it here whilst you were talking there, but I haven't been able to. But there was a really good one that he did on snow leopards, and
I think that's Planet Earth, the one where it's the Markhor and it's chasing it, and they basically throw themselves off the cliff.
No, there is actually a snow leopard documentary.
Documentary.
I have it on DVD upstairs. But it's really good.
Yeah,
it's really good. It's got some of the first kind of footage of that kind of snow leopards.
I've just remembered the main thing that sticks in my head about Life in the Freezer. That is the documentary where you see the leopard seal bringing the Adelie penguin carcass to the cameraman.
Yes.
And basically going, "You don't know how to feed yourself. Have a dead penguin." Why aren't you eating it? Have the dead penguin. And, basically hanging around the cameraman for weeks, basically trying to give him penguins as a sort of sign of, "We are a very skinny seal. You need to eat something. Come on, eat something." That sort of thing. And, the extras of it. That was one of those things. This is not. I didn't discover Attenborough when DVDs were around, because I can't remember a time where I wasn't watching a David Attenborough documentary on TV, but this is the first chance to have like a nice big catalogue of them, on a bookshelf. And they were always the display DVDs, those ones, all the David Attenborough ones. I've still got them somewhere. I may have got rid of most of my DVDs and almost I've got rid of my DVD player to an extent. But I still have them.
I still have my David Attenborough. I think I've got Life in Cold Blood as well. That's brilliant.
That's another one that's really good. Those were like the original like collector's ones. The Life in Cold Blood, Life of Birds, Life of Mammals. Life of Plants.
They were almost, even though each one of those was a series, they were almost like a franchise themselves. They were kind of like the Avengers of documentaries.
The DCU.
Yeah.
The David. No, hang on.
The David Cinematic
Universe. Yeah, go with that one.
Actually, speaking of David Cinematic Universe, he's done a couple things that went direct to IMAX. There were special IMAX ones. I just can't remember what they were. Well, but they were really good as well.
Speaking of cinema things as well, I can remember. I think it was after the second Jurassic Park film came out. I realised that's David Attenborough's brother, Sir Richard Attenborough, who's sadly no longer with us. But he's I mean, what an amazing pair of brothers to talk about.
And how lucky we are to be talking about David Attenborough celebrating another year on this planet.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It is the literal top person who I would like to meet.
Yeah.
I mean,
he walked within like 3 foot of me once, and that was like, it was like you'd been passed by, like, I don't know, Zeus or someone.
I've seen him on a stage. I've seen him, Sir Ian Redmond, and Jane Goodall on a stage.
Oh, that sounds like a good trio.
It was a very good. It was all about like the great apes, obviously, and everything. And yeah, it just does not disappoint.
I had him on a stage with, I think it was the Fothergill. I think that's how you pronounce it. He did a lot of the kind of camera direction for David Attenborough back in the day. And listening to those two talk was just wicked, like really like far out stuff. Yeah.
Well, let us know what your favorite David Attenborough documentary is, or thing that he's done. It may be a book. There's all sorts. I can remember the Trials of Life. I think is one of those original series that he did years and years ago, and I can always remember that being a book that we had on the bookshelf in the front room that was there, and I can always remember flicking through it, and it was actually the reason why, for a very long period of time, I was terrified of sharks.
Oh, yeah?
That book, because in the center of that book, there is a lovely, I mean, I can look at it now, obviously, I really like sharks, but as a kid, it terrified me. In the middle of that book is a big double-page picture of a great white shark coming up out of the gloom.
Oh, yeah?
And it like, little me just was terrified of that, to the point where getting in the swimming pool was terrifying. So, yeah, it's a book that I think I've still got somewhere, because I've taken it off my parents now and added it to my collection. But I can quite happily look at that central page now and not go, ah. So, but yeah, to let us know what of his books, his DVDs, his documentaries, any of those things that you enjoyed the most, really.
And then go 99th birthday to David Attenborough, and here's to the next 99.
Definitely.
You're not going anywhere.
Not allowed to. Yeah, not allowed to. Right. Well, should we move into our creature feature for this week?
He's not even allowed to retire, Gareth.
No, he's not. No.
No.
It's the creature feature.
So we're into this week's creature feature. Aaron, can you name me all of the extant members of the crow family in the UK? Going to put you on the spot here.
Corvids.
The Corvids, yeah, the Corvid family.
Okay. Try not to embarrass myself.
No, it's fine.
Guys at home, remember that the birds are not my strongest suit. Right now, I am trying to improve. So we've got Raven.
Yep.
Raven, Rook.
Yep.
Carrion Crow.
Is that for? That's how you take it onto the plane. It's carry-on.
It's
crow.
The only bird you're allowed on the actual that part of the plane. Yeah,
it's
everything else has to go in the hole.
Yeah, carrion crow, but yeah.
Yeah, so you got Raven, Jackdaw, Carrion Crow.
You said Rook.
Rook. Okay, so I've said Raven, Jackdaw, Carrion Crow, Rook. There's another crow, the Hooded Crow.
Yep, very good.
Then you've got Chough, Jay, Magpie.
Yeah, spot on. You got them all.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, no, that's good. So, yeah, Raven being the largest, Carrion Crow, like I say, the only one you can take on a plane. Don't quote us on that.
You have a whole crow as well. That goes underneath.
The Jackdaw, the Hooded Crow, the Rook, the Jay, the Magpie, and finally the Chough. Now, there are 8 different species of Corvid in the UK. 4 are quite common. If you live in the UK, you've almost certainly either heard or seen one of these and just called it a crow, which, much to my disappointment, when I've taken students to do bird watching as part of one of their courses, and gone, okay, what's that bird? Crow. Okay, it's slightly different. Blackbird. Yes, it's black and it's a bird. Give me more than that.
And sometimes when I've spoken to Americans, though, they don't actually differentiate between crow and raven, and I think some of the Europeans don't either.
Well, I mean, we can certainly try and diverge a bit. In fact, we have covered the raven in the past, an absolutely stunning bird. But the carrion crow, rooks, magpies, and jackdaws are by far the most common. The ones that you are most likely going to see on a daily basis. I love seeing jackdaws, and carrion crows are probably the second most common that I tend to see most of the time.
There's also a bit of a geographical.
Well, yes,
because jays, they were when I was working at Knowsley, I was told that jays were far more common up north. But since then, there's been more and more that I've seen down here.
I mean, they prefer deciduous oak forests, so I think you'll find them wherever you will find a nice, decent growth of oak trees.
It was just accidental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're far more secretive than a lot of these. So ravens are far less common, but their numbers are now recovering from decades of persecution. Jays are the UK's only really colourful corvid, although, I mean, depends how you determine colour, really. They are vastly different in colour than the rest of them, but I would say that all of the members of the crow family do look pretty. But although they're widespread, they're shy and really difficult to see. Unless you know what their call is, it can be hard to obviously find them. The final two, the hooded crow and the chough, are far less common and have much more restricted ranges. And it's the hooded crow you'll find up in Scotland. You won't see them down here in the south of England. But the chough is the bird that we are looking at today. Now, these birds feature in my pantheon of creatures, shall we say, like the weta, the tuatara, the Indian ringneck, as a species I hold dear. And they've always been a bird that's been on my list to see for a variety of reasons. However, I would say the main reason that I hadn't gone and seen them for the longest time is, well, it's probably laziness and a series of bad luck sort of spotting trips to go and see birds. But it was only last year that I managed to see the red-billed chough on Anglesey, and in fact, I think we put that on the podcast. This wonderful video of this chough whizzing across because the winds were blowing that ridiculously that I managed to see it very, very briefly. The other reason is basically it's kind of Game of Thrones-esque. If this were Game of Thrones, this would be the sigil of House Thomas.
Oh yeah.
As they're on my family crest, or on the Thomas family crest, there are 3 choughs, which, as I just love as a concept. I like the idea of having an animal on your crest.
You know that now you need a special edition cupboard top which has
3 choughs,
but with a shield and 3 choughs on it.
I like it. Well, it turns out it's not just one that's used for people with the last name Thomas, but it's used in a variety of other places as well. As a side note, I don't hold much into the whole heraldic crest thing, but it's a nice design and it's a bit of fun, if anything. I have no preconceived notions that I'm of some sort of noble birth or anything like that. It is literally just a case of I've always liked that and can remember being brought a keychain that had that on it, as like a Thomas family crest thing. So what indeed is a chough? Well, the black feathers of the chough clearly mark it out as a crow, but unlike any other members of this family, it has blood red bill and legs. So they really do stand out. In fact, brighter than the cushions here. Quite a deep red. This is almost, I suppose, a pink.
Chicago Bulls, Manchester United red.
Yeah, actually, yes, go with that. Yeah, because that's quite a good way of looking at it, I suppose. The bird is about 39 to 40 centimeters in length from head to toe, and it's got a wingspan of about 73 to 90 centimeters. So not massive, like that sort of wingspan. It's a medium-sized bird. You certainly would spot it if it flew in front of you, because it's not a small little, tiny little hedgerow bird or something like that. It's big enough to notice.
I don't know if I've ever seen one of memory wise.
Well, we'll get to where you can see them in just a moment. The sexes are similar, but the juvenile has a much duller bill and legs than the adults, and its plumage lacks that glossiness that is seen in much older birds and all the members of the crow family, basically. That lovely oil on water sheen that really makes their feathers. Yeah, they're really pretty feathers. Now, there is another species of chough in the same family as these guys, and that is the alpine chough. We don't get this one here in the UK, mostly because well, as you could probably guess, it lives high up in the mountains in Europe, so in the Alps. Although this is the first species of chough that I was ever able to see at the summit of Pic du Midi in the French Pyrenees.
Oh yeah.
So as soon as we got up to like the visitor centre, they were just sort of hopping around the visitor centre, taking crumbs and things like that from people. But they're a stunning bird, and I was, I like choughs, and I had to go and see them when we were there. So yeah, that was the first species of chough I've ever seen out of the two. So I can now say I've ticked off both.
Is there a physical difference?
Yes, so these are yellow.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yellow bill, yellow legs. That's pretty much it. It's the main difference. So where does the word chough originate? Because it does look weird. Looks like it's a bird that's saying cough, but it is got nothing to do with that. In fact, it originally was an alternate onomatopoeic name for the jackdaw, Corvus mondula. Now, it was based on its call.
Yeah, I can see.
Now, if you think of a jackdaw's call, which I'll try and put in here. Their call sounds like a chough, chough, chough sort of sound. Because of this, and the sort of at the time, let's say people would see these birds in the same place, but also it basically was seen as the same sort of animal. People weren't as keen on distinguishing two different species. The names became mixed with the much more similar, or the very similar member of the crow family, the chough. And at the time, it was common in Cornwall, and it became initially known as the Cornish chough, and then just chough. Essentially, the name flipped from one species to another and transferred completely. So the etymology of the chough's scientific name is really quite cool. I think you're going to like this one. I quite often have an issue with scientific names. This is Pyrrhocorax pyrrhocorax. Ancient Greek meaning pyros, or flame-coloured or fiery, and corax meaning raven, literally translating to flame-coloured raven or fire raven.
Fire raven.
Which I think is brilliant.
That is a cool name.
As names go, it doesn't get much better than that, I think. And it's reflecting, obviously, the red of the bill and the legs. Now, the bird's name also holds true in Welsh, being called Vran Gosgoch, literally meaning red-legged crow.
Goch.
Goch as in red.
The red dragon.
Yep, and Vran is crow because raven is Sigvran. And Gosgoch meaning red, or red-legged. So yeah. However, the Cornish word I think isn't as good. So to speak in Kerno, they're known as the Palaws, which translates to digger, which I don't think is it's not as good as flame raven or red-legged crow. It's sort of a downgrade to digger because it reflects how they find their food. They basically probe into the ground with that lovely little beak, looking for worms and grubs to be able to eat. So for once, I can definitely say that they have a cool scientific name. And even though it's literal, like the Welsh name, I think we can all agree that fire raven is an awesome name.
It's a contender for top scientific name, I think.
Pretty cool. I don't think there's many that have got a better name, especially for to most people, an unassuming bird.
It's also a scientific name that if I could change slightly, I think I would.
What would it be?
So that would be it would be something like Pyrrhocorax Palohades.
Palohades, go on.
Palor is
digger,
Cornish,
right?
Digger in the underworld. Because he's digging the
all right.
That would make it really cool.
We'll get onto that. Get onto the Linnaean Society. So the distribution of the chough makes this bird, I think, certainly in the UK, as Celtic a bird as possible. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, if you look at a map of the places in the UK where the Celtic languages and culture exist, in one form or another. Obviously, these days, far less than they used to be, but that would be Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, and the Isle of Man, and even down, just obviously off the coast of the UK, you've got Brittany and France. And you put up a map of where choughs are found, you will see that these locations are where the choughs have continued to cling on to, certainly in the UK. So you will find them on the west coast of Scotland, Wales, and Cornwall is essentially where these birds are found in the UK.
Are they? Do you know if they're found in the Basque region of Spain?
I am not sure. I mean, I don't think they seek out Celtic people,
because
but
that would complete the Celtic theme. There.
They are found much further afield in the rest of Eurasia, as you might as you might see.
Yeah.
But after an absence of over 50 years, a couple of years ago, a pair of choughs believed to have come from either the Irish or Breton populations arrived and bred in Cornwall in 2002, and was seen to speak for a nation to confirm Cornwall's place alongside its Celtic cousins. Now, for those of you who are unaware, Cornwall is very different to most of England. The Cornish people have their own language, Cerno, which is very similar to Welsh because it is a Celtic language. And it is, if you speak to a lot of people who are truly Celtic, I suppose, they will see themselves as separate from the rest of England.
They have a very strong identity.
Yes, yeah.
They were the last ones, I think, to join the
Union.
The Union, yeah.
Yeah. And there's even a push for, Celtic devolution to basically take them away from the rest of England as such. I would even say that Devon, to a certain extent, feels a little bit like that. It does sometimes feel like Devon is very different to other parts of England, but, jam and cream and scones and all. But, anyway, the more we go down that route, the weirder it's going to get. But as Dr. Lovejoy Jenkins of the Nationalist Party of Mebion Cerno said, the re-emergence of the chough is a symbol of the re-emergence of the Cornish nation, which I think is nice. And if you look on the Cornish coat of arms, it's also there as well. It's a bird that holds a lot of folklore for the Cornish people. Interestingly enough, in Welsh folklore, choughs are known as Vran Gosgoch, the red-legged crow, are an association with the legend of King Arthur. This also holds true into Cornish culture as well, because it's all very much the same. In that sort of legendarium sort of thing. You've got Tintagel over this side.
Tintagel, yeah.
But it's believed that after his death, King Arthur's spirit was reborn as a chough. In fact, it's the red beak and red legs supposedly signifying the blood of his final battle. And because the killing of a chough is considered bad luck, it's seen as disrespecting the spirit of King Arthur. Now, interestingly, in Cornish versions of this myth, it's actually just before his death, somehow King Arthur returned, but as a chough. You get the Palpatine reference there?
Yes.
Yeah. He basically transferred his essence just before death into a chough.
Yeah.
Which maybe would have been a better story for the later Star Wars films.
It certainly would have been more entertaining.
In fact, Palpatine becomes a porg or something like that. Would have been far better. And they just mob everyone. Anyway, in Greek mythology, because these birds are found in Greece, and certainly...
Which isn't Celtic.
Very much not Celtic, no. In Greek mythology, the red-billed chough is also known as the sea crow, and was considered sacred to the Titan Kronos, and dwelt on, I'm terrible with this...
Ogygia.
I
literally just made that up.
Okay.
That's what the word looks like.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, they basically are seen as sort of connected to the Titan Kronos, which is, that's cool.
Yeah, Kronos wasn't such a great guy.
All right, well, he liked these birds. I like him. What can I say?
Just keep your manhood away from them, then.
Fair enough. And it was even referenced in Shakespeare. but it's most likely the jackdaw that was being referenced, as this was the period where the two names were basically used interchangeably between them.
Are you trying to say that Shakespeare was not a birder?
I'm trying to say that, yeah. He was more about the writing, less about the scientific accuracy.
So whilst King Arthur had the Merlin app to help him.
Oh yeah. In more ways than one. Yeah. So it's also the animal symbol of the island of La Palma.
Is it really? I did not know that.
Yeah, so they are found there as well.
Very cool.
It is quite a cool bird. It is found in lots of places, and it actually has an extensive range. It's an estimated 10 million square kilometers, which is roughly 4 million square miles. It's a large population of somewhere around 86,000 to 210,000 individuals in Europe. Now, that's the whole of Europe. Over its range as a whole, the species is not believed to approach the threshold for global population decline criteria for the IUCN Red List. Has declined more than 30% in 10 years, or essentially 3 generations. It's therefore still seen as least concern, which you and I have both got issues with least concern as a way of classifying species. However, the European range has declined and fragmented more due to the loss of its traditional pastoral farming areas, which is more mainland Europe where these guys tend to hang out. In Britain, it's very much on the rocky coastal cliffs of the west coast that you'll find them, but they still like farmland because it's lots of easy insects to find, in that ground. But that loss of traditional pastoral farming and persecution and even disturbance of breeding sites has basically altered their numbers. Although in Britain and in France, actually, as well as Ireland, the population may have actually stabilized. Okay. So the European breeding population is between 12,000 and 17,000 pairs, but only in Spain is the species still considered widespread. In the UK and the Isle of Man, chough populations are estimated to be around 433 breeding pairs, which is considerably smaller. Obviously, we're not taking the whole of Europe versus one country, but still not as good as it could be. The majority of these populations are found in Wales, with some populations in Scotland, Ireland, and most notably, obviously, some in Cornwall, where they've basically recolonized areas. There is also a small population present on the Isle of Man as well, basically completing that nice Celtic line going down the whole of the west coast. Now, for a while when I was writing this, I actually wrestled with myself whether to call this episode a Celtic Corvid or a flame-coloured raven. It was essentially the more and more I looked into how this bird is connected, it changed, what I called it in the end. Both sound cool, but ultimately I settled on the former due to its deep significance to the Celtic peoples and to myths and to myself and my family name. We often tend to see the UK as not having the same level of connection to the land and its animals as many First Nations people around the world do today. And I think this is quite true. But this is, I think, due to our ancestors putting a lot of these connections aside to become the first truly industrialized nation. The Industrial Revolution started here in the UK. And when people started moving to cities to find work, this took a good chunk of that connection and knowledge away from, people in the early 1900s. And with the advent of a lot of the rebuilding and change of agricultural practices post-World War II and into the 50s, we saw another massive chunk of this sort of connection to the land disappear.
Yeah.
This wave of people moving away from the places of birth, so never really getting to develop that connection from the land of where their ancestors are from. So I think we could both quite easily relate to that. Both of us have moved from different places and have moved around, but still have some sort of, I don't know, I feel like I have to have a longing or a connection to a place in some way or form, to basically understand the place a bit better, I suppose. That lost link of connection to the land and to the area itself should be seen as the true patriotism, not this pseudo flag waving patriotism that seems to have hijacked the word and the sort of mentality these days, which is unfortunately far too common, not just here, but all over the place. But we should be wanting to learn about the deep connections that we have to the landscape, its folkloric myths, and what makes the creatures living in these areas special, and then want to protect it, not from people who weren't born in the same part of the world or even in the next county, or from those who have moved from a different country, but from those who want to exploit it and profit from its degradation.
So the people in charge of it, really.
Essentially, yes. Not by people who want to come to basically learn about it, to be part of it. Those who are seeking to destroy for profit, basically. This would be a total mindset shift and sort of almost shift of reality in some ways, for a world where nature isn't often put first. And this is why I feel that animals like the chough are so important as a focal point to help bring people back together with their lost connections to the land, and feel something for that place and want to do everything they can to protect it. So, my weird sort of, I should have had a flag going in the background then.
With a chough.
Yeah, with a chough on it to basically do that. But yeah, that's the chough. They're an absolutely fascinating bird. Really cool, quite unassuming. Most people would probably just go, "Oh, it's a crow with red legs," but I think they're ultimately a lot cooler than people give them credit for. But certainly one to go and see. Best places to go and see them is South Stack on Anglesey. It's a really good RSPB reserve, down in Cornwall as well. And if you're on the Isle of Man, there's one or two really good places to go and see them there. But those are your best spots. The Alpine chough, pretty much anywhere in the Alps or the Pyrenees in mainland Europe. But yeah, so yeah,
it's a really cool bird.
It is.
I never knew any of that about its history and its importance to our cultures here.
It's got a huge connection throughout it. I like the King Arthur connection as well. Yeah. So yeah, that's good. But yeah, let's head into our emails for this week.
Let's do it.
Bing! You've got mail. Ooh, it's an email.
Right, well, we're into this week's emails now. We've got to sort of catch up a little bit because we weren't here the other week. Yeah, so,
do I make a public apology?
No, it's fine. Okay. I think we can. We've got to that point where people have realised we weren't here the other week. So what we're going to do is actually catch up on the two lots of questions that we set you guys, because I actually set the question before we realised it had all gone to pot.
Yeah.
So the first lot. So you're getting a bonus question thing this week.
Lots of interaction this week.
So it was the question the other week when we did the Indrincothere, or the Parasitherium episode, was what is your favorite Mongolian animal, extinct or extant? Which did you give an opinion as to what your favorite one? I'm assuming it was Linharaptor.
It was either Linharaptor or Velociraptor.
Yeah. Going basic on that one. Yeah. So Jen Babb starts us off.
Proud to be basic.
I had to do a bit of research here because my default answer would have been the Taki, sorry, or Przewalski's wild horse, because of my background in horses. I'm imagining.
Equid, yeah.
To be fair, in another life, I would have loved to have been involved in the research around these amazing animals, but I didn't know. That was an option. I think the Mongolian wild ass would go in that bracket too. Yeah. But then after some research, the Saiga antelope, they have a fabulous noise. Sorry, they have a fabulous nose, making them look haughty. I don't know what haughty means.
Haughty means like, if I remember right, because it's not a word I often use.
No, I don't think I've ever heard that word.
Haughty is a bit snooty, a bit like, looking down.
They're basically a Star Wars character, just in real life.
Yeah. So our next comment comes to us from Spencer Seams, and he says, I have to pick birds, and I have to pick birds iconic to Mongolia.
I mean, that's a good call.
Yeah, that's not answering a Mongolian question with Australian birds. Sorry. I seem to come back to the podcast with
some sass.
With some sass, yeah. So first pick is I'm about to butcher this pronunciation.
No, that's fine. Give it a go.
First pick is the Hubara Bustard.
That's the one.
Hubara bustard. They look like chickens with a bird of prey's colouring. The second is the Amur falcon because falcons are cool. Yeah, falcons are cool. The Millennium Falcon particularly.
Oh dear. So Stephen Eddy has put the Angola Morpesh, or do cryptids not count? Probably spelt wrong. No, cryptids count. I suppose it's always fun. We always like a cryptid.
And our good friend Lindsay Kinsella has said, Pharizinosaurus, excellent at trimming hedges, terrible at picking noses.
Ooh, yeah. Especially if he tries to pick your nose. So he'll do it from a distance, but he might skewer you. Jan Ashbridge, please don't overlook the wild Bactrian camel. They are fabulous and weird, wonderful animals. They are red book listed, and there is a special reserve for them in the Great Gobi. And I think, yeah, they're a really cool camel. It's the only camels I've ever worked with
they're really cool,
Bactrian.
You probably haven't actually
not the wild, they're the domestic.
Yeah, and Jess Owens says golden eagle. No other answer is acceptable.
She has strong opinions on that, apparently.
Apparently so.
So that moves us on to the next question that we asked you, which was supposed to tie in with the wolf episode, for the simple reason that I could not think of a more wolfy question to ask than this one, which was, what animal would you want as your 3 wolf moon meme?
Having been out of it for like over a week,
haven't looked at the comments.
These live, yeah.
So just for those of you who are unsure of what a 3 wolf moon is, you've probably seen someone probably wearing a shirt, or the other one is like weird fleeces. There's like a weird obsession with people wearing wolf fleeces. In fact, it can be quite fun to try and spot people wearing wolf fleeces. Go to a zoo and play that game of spot the 3 wolf moon shirt, and then go into the gift shop and you'll probably come across a 3 wolf moon shirt.
Oh yeah, you definitely will.
The best zoos, of course, will have ones that have not just 3 wolves howling at a moon, pretending that that's the only thing that wolves do.
The Rastafari line that every zookeeper had to tell me, this is the shirt you should get.
I love that.
Because I have dreadlocks.
Yeah.
Because I have dreadlocks, I should get
And you work with lions. Yeah, exactly. So there are various ones that you can get that are just joke ones, like 3 sloth moon, 3 capybara is another one that seems to turn up from time to time, just basically joking on the whole meme.
Yeah.
So the picture I went with is what I would have, 3 kakapo moon, which I think works quite well. So some of the answers we've had, we'll start them off. Jess,
this is the one I just saw
that you've just read, has said the Natural History Podcast hosts. So that has had very much a yes from my wife, who wants to see all 3 of us in that sort of situation. So you know what? We'll have to try and sort that out as the 3 of us just staring at the moon.
Not just staring, we have to be howling.
Oh, right, howling, okay.
Maria Malco says, oh, that is a hard one. I would say any kind of nocturnal gecko, crested gecko, gargoyle gecko, etc., just because it gives me the mental image of a family of geckos posing in a bad 80s photo. Yes.
They need to have like Bob Ross hair, I feel, in that situation. I don't know why. So Christopher Ackerston said, I have a few gorgonopsids, so 3 gorgonopsid moon for land, Agilosaurus for water, the Sinestrus Pearlmanii wasp for invertebrates, and wetters for the show. So, I mean, no comment on that one from me.
We need to be able to breed wetters.
Oh, shut up. Read the comment.
Jem Babs says narwhals. They'll be poking each other, trying to get in the shot.
I like that.
So,
to which Christopher Ackerson has said, nice. Now I want to change mine to something like orcas or vaquitas. So it's the gift that keeps on giving, that meme, I feel, in so many ways. It's hilarious. So this week's question that we're posing you, now that we've cleared those ones out of the way, is what animal would you want on your family crest? As we've already discovered, I have the chough on mine. Erin, do you know what yours has on it? I mean, or what you'd prefer on it?
I don't know, but I'm going to look into it.
I'm going to quickly do that whilst you ponder what animal you would want on yours, hypothetically.
I think it'd have to be, because of how much I like them. It's probably gonna have to be tigers.
So you're going for tigers on yours?
Not multiple tigers though. Like I'm not, I'd like, probably like just one single tiger,
Yeah.
kind of in a pose akin to either the tiger that I think is on one of the Somerset heraldry. People think it's a lion, but it's
a
supposed to be
tiger.
a tiger.
Okay.
They think it's a lion because it has a mane and no stripes. But at that time, they just drew a big cat.
Just,
that was it. But it's
I guess.
I think I'm right in saying it's supposed to be a tiger. So either striking a pose like that, or probably more striking a pose like the red dragon on the Welsh flag.
Fair enough.
That's a cool pose for a tiger to have. And also, I mean, you probably won't know this, but that dragon pose is very reminiscent of the Kung Fu dragon. So when in Hung Gar Kung Fu,
yeah,
the dragon is so it's 3 claws like that. The tiger is like that.
I mean, yeah.
So that's quite a cool, like, from that. If you imagine that flag with a tiger on it, and I used to do that style Kung Fu. So it's a nice little link.
I can tell you that's cooler than what you've actually got. It's just sort of a knight's helmet, and
there's not a single
animal. Not all of them have animals.
We're changing it.
Well, there you go. You can make it whatever you want. So yeah. What animal do you want on yours? If I could pick another animal other than Chough,
Witter.
No, it wouldn't.
So you could breed.
No, it's going to be another bird. I'm torn between the kakapo, because there's just something so brilliant about a bird that is that large and ridiculous, and I would have to go Indian ringneck, but sort of in like that sort of eagle pose that you see, like the German eagle, not like that kind of eagle, but like on heraldry you tend to see eagles like that. But yeah,
I might have changed my mind. I'm not 100% sure, but actually, now I can think of it, I wouldn't mind an orca.
Okay, that could be interesting.
A pretty cool one.
Yeah. So it's open, whatever you want. So let us know. You can design your own crest if you want. Send those in. We could even put some up behind us.
Yeah.
we'll have our own cupboard heraldry.
Crest, yeah.
Oh yeah, we could actually do that. I'll get on that. Right. So that's our question for this week. That's up on Facebook. If you want to answer that one, it's also open for you to answer in the YouTube comments. Talking of which, we've got some comments that have come in over the last 2 weeks. So what do we got, Aaron?
So we'll start off with the comments that are on the Paraspherium episode, because that's the oldest question. So the first one comes to us from Rosalie9961, who says, for this week's question of favourite species coming from the Mongolia region, is Dinocyrus. Of course. I'm kidding. I and that species of cool dinosaur have done enough damage to Aaron. My actual favourite is the star of this episode, Paraspherium.
Wait.
That's cool. I was so giddy and excited while watching this episode, predicting what Gareth would say and knowing some of the beats he was going to hit.
Oh, wow. Am I that predictable?
I first encountered my beloved through Walking with Beasts.
It's exactly what I said. Yeah.
And its episode, Land of Giants, has always been one of my favourites. I know it's potentially cliche to look at a big thing and go, big thing, cool. But I mean,
we do that with dinosaurs, so yeah.
We do it with everything. Paraspherium is a magnificent rhino cosplaying as a giraffe, and I could never lose my love for it. I also think it's semi-poetic or funny that ancient elephants may have caused the downfall of these giants.
They were jealous.
Ancient relatives of today's largest land-dwelling animal potentially spelling doom for the largest mammals ever is a wacky scenario. Also, I'm totally feeling Aaron's headache whenever the he who shall not be named wolf is brought up. Also, I know this comment will be dated when you guys read this, but this episode for me came out on May 4th. Yes, it did.
Jedi,
'Cause
Star Wars
I'm
Day.
not a Star Wars person, but happy belated May the 4th be with you day. Well, thank you very much, because we definitely are Star Wars people.
May the Force be with you.
You will be a Star Wars person.
I am a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, wonderful comment. Thank you very much for that. And then from Rennington, this week's answer is a draw and an honourable mention. The honourable mention is the direwolf. Joking.
Oh God.
Good. The desert sand boa. Oh, that's how you think of that.
The derpiest looking snakes in the world.
So cool though. Sorry, that took me by surprise. The desert sand boa is a beautiful snake species, but the winners are a draw between the majestic story of, I think you mean the majesty of the Przewalski's horse.
Yeah.
No, it is the story. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself and getting the wrong conclusion. So I'll read that bit again. The desert sand boa is a beautiful snake species, but the winners are a draw between the majestic story of the Przewalski's horse as one of the arguably greatest win of in the zoo conservation world. It is, and the Saiga antelope as a perfect.
I do like Saiga.
Proboscis. Do you know what? If we ever do Saiga, he's given us the title for that episode.
Perfect proboscis.
Yeah, as prominently perceived on this plains populating Paleo-esque antelope. You're trying to catch me up. Always captures my mind and imagination. Again, 3 wonderful species named there.
Do you know what? It's just given me the thought we could do a really large nose episode.
Yeah.
You could do the proboscis monkey, the Saiga antelope, the Sengi, all of these weird nosed creatures. Yeah.
And the last comment on that video comes to us from Jose Colon 5750, who says, read this title as a homeless rhino twin.
So it's one of us live in homes, so I suppose they kind of were.
We've replied, it's long extinct. That's about as homeless as you can get, sadly.
Homeless rhinos.
Oh, geez, that's a good comment.
There's some good ones there, yeah.
So the next comment comes to us on the episode that you put out last week, the stand-in episode, and it comes to us from Rosalie9961, who says, it is truly unfortunate to whatever events led to this episode, but this episode was still was a good one. I hope whatever happened is resolved and everything is back to normal as soon as possible.
He's alive.
It is. It's my fault. Migration really is such an amazing thing that animals do on this planet. Also, every time I hear the story of that stork, I always feel so bad for it, but also see it as such a powerful animal. Sure, the spear-like weapon didn't hit a major target, and this animal may have had a disability, but to still be able to migrate with a giant pole sticking through it is simply incredible. It really is. That story that's an inspirational one.
Well, it is and it isn't, because it's sort of like, you too can survive being hit through the chest with an arrow. Only to then fly all the way to Germany and get shot by someone.
Yeah, there is that bit.
It's sort of like, hooray, I survived. Bang. Oh, damn it. In a very bad second, like, he's had 2 bad days in his life, and one of them was noticeably worse than the first one.
Oh dear. Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, okay. I might rescind that inspiration. but still, to be able to fly that far with a spear through your neck
it's incredibly impressive. And you see birds with injuries like that to this day, like holes ripped in their necks from something they've tried to eat and swallow, and it's just come out the side. There's a particularly famous photo, I think, of it's either a heron or a pelican, and it's got a hole in its throat, and it's swallowed something like an eel, and it's just, you can see it come out the hole. It's like, well, I don't feel very full. I don't know why. I keep eating, but I just don't feel full. So it was a fun episode to do.
Cool, that was close.
Yeah. Hopefully it lands in water. Anyway, so moving swiftly on, that, like I say, is our YouTube comments. You can always get in contact with us that way. You can also get in contact with us via our emails, which is thenathistorykcupboard@gmail.com. Drop us a line there if you wish, and to let us know about any news stories or anything that you want us to cover as well. And in fact, Aaron, we've got some emails.
Yes, we do. The first one comes to us from Matt Geddy, one of our beloved Patreon supporters, who says, "Hey guys, a friendly hello from Melbourne. I've been meaning to write in for a number of weeks and I've finally got round to do it today. Firstly, I've really been enjoying going back through all your old episodes.
Oh, we're sorry.
Hopefully not the first couple. It's a joy to listen while I'm commuting or in the lab. I love the chemistry between all three of you, and so it was a delight to jump on today for the most recent episode, A Whopper of a Wolf, and hear Drew's voice. And I was very excited to hear he'll be back for a few more this year. I 100% understand why he stood down, but the banter between all three of you on the mic is nostalgic and often hysterical. In an episode from 2021, I don't remember which.
Crikey.
We won't remember either. You all shared influential books that you've read. Okay. As a voracious reader, I thought I'd also share some that you and the wider community might find interesting. So you list them. So The Elephant Whisperer by Lawrence Anthony is absolute gold. Best book on conservation I've ever read, which I will second that because I have that book and it's very, very good.
I think I've heard of Lawrence Anthony, but I've never heard of that book.
It's very good. His second book is A Sand County Almanac by Aldo Leopold. Is considered a classic of the genre, especially in North America. The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Brissetti, which happens to be over there, right here.
And I've got my copy as well. In fact, I weirdly have a copy that has not got the pictures in the right order and everything. It was one that was like a protocopy sent out to people that I managed to get a hold of before its release.
That's really cool, though.
I know, and I absolutely inhaled that book on the flight out to Tenerife, which is not the longest flight in the world, but I inhaled that book.
4.5 hours. I have started reading it, and I think it's a fantastic book.
Yeah.
So sorry, where were we? So by Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs by Steve Brissetti. I know you guys talk about this one often, which we just did. Sorry, but it's worth mentioning again because I don't know of many other books in which writing about dinosaurs is so skillfully articulated. And
very true.
Yes.
Yeah.
His follow-up, The Rise and Reign of Mammals.
I'm still yet to read that.
I am going to get that because that one is. I've not finished it, but that was so good. I know that I'm going to get that one. When Life Gives You Lemurs by Tim Husband. Chuck them in the bin. Sorry.
Whoa.
I only recently finished this one, and as Husband is a zookeeper himself, considered one of the world's foremost authorities on animal husbandry. I thought of you guys often while reading it and wonder if you know of him. I know of him. I haven't read that book, but I will do. No. I will do on your recommendation. And then he goes on to say, I was also wanting to give a nod to Aaron for an offhanded comment he made a few episodes back.
You make an offhanded comment?
No, that doesn't sound like me. About how one might never know how their skills could translate into different fields, including paleontology and conservation biology. I remember. The result for me was an exhaustive deep dive into the direction to take my own career so I can work more closely with animals in scientific research. Good for you. Because it doesn't matter what skills you have, they need it all. And since you're going back through old episodes and you like that comment, listen to the interview with Dr. Paige DePolo.
Yeah, that's a fantastic one.
Yeah, really
that was not 2021. That would have been 2022, maybe 3, because I can remember I was at the first college that I'd worked at when we did that one. We were doing it remotely, but we weren't at the video stage yet.
Funnily enough, because you've mentioned him in this email, it was Steve Brissetti that got us in contact with.
It was indeed, yeah,
because he didn't have time to come in for an interview.
Yeah,
he said, this
was one of his
study
grad students.
Grad student. This grad student is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Get in contact with her, and she was phenomenal.
Yeah, and now she's since
brilliant.
published her works and everything.
Yeah,
and I think she is one of the foremost knowledges on pantodonts.
Yeah,
which are those just a completely bizarre group of mammals that well, I don't think any of us had even heard of before speaking to her.
All very vague on them.
Yeah.
Finally, I have two questions I want to ask. Number one, you've all mentioned numerous times that none of you particularly enjoyed working with primates, and I was curious as to why that's the case.
I don't know. I like primates to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem with primates, certainly in zoo collections, is they tend to overshadow everything else. People tend to focus on them far too much, and like as in public, not the keepers, because you have to focus on them anyway.
Mm.
And I've always, I don't know, there's certain primates I enjoyed working with, certain primates I didn't enjoy working with, like South American callitrichids, or just callitrichids in general. They're all right.
I mean, half the scars on this hand are from callitrichids.
A lot of them are very small, very bitey, and not really that interactive. Capuchins, absolutely would work with them anytime. I think they're amazing primates. Those incredibly intelligent, social animals, and the ones that I worked with, which were rescues, they were, it was great to see them coming out of their shell from pretty horrific circumstances that they'd come from. I think chimps and the great apes are a whole other subset. They have good days and bad days,
mm-hmm.
and you can do some really amazing things with them, and they can be really just, they can be thuggish, horrible. I'm gonna bleep the word if I was to say it, but they're interesting to work with as well. But I don't know.
So for me, it's slightly different. So when you talk to most primate keepers, or at least most primate keepers I've met, they'll say that they like working with all these primates except chimpanzees.
See, yeah, they're the better ones to work with.
Chimpanzees are the only primate I ever enjoyed working with.
Yeah,
they are. So I will summarize my experience with primates. I find primates to be completely unrewarding to work with. They just, and I don't know if it's partially not to offend anybody or rub people the wrong way. I don't know if it's partially the people that were working with them, to be honest.
Trying not to say that.
I don't know if it's the people that I experienced doing it with, although I will say where I worked with chimps and capuchins, the people were brilliant.
Do you know what I think it is? And this is, we're probably going to lose a lot of people who are primate keepers at this point.
I'm now worrying about what you're going to say because I've tried to be careful.
I think there is a perceived greatness about primates by a lot of primate keepers, that they are the best animal because humans are primates. Therefore, they are the next rung down on the evolutionary ladder, and everything is lesser. And I've known some people who have very much thought that there is no point in any other animal other than a primate, to the complete exclusion of everything else. If there's a spider that's in the enclosure, they will find it, we don't have to save that. We have to worry about the primates, to the point where they would kill the spider because it's in the way of the primates or something like that. That might be my hot take on that, but I think there are some people who have that view on them, and that can sour the experience, I think.
Okay.
But primates themselves, like I say, are brilliant, but I think it comes down to people embracing all aspects of the force, not just the dogmatic views of the primate keepers. Good, Anakin.
I think there's also an element of, I can't speak for Gareth and I can't speak for Drew, but other than finding, so what I said about primates being unrewarding and not fun and just I don't know, just they just suck.
They just don't do it for you.
They just don't do it. Not everything is for everyone.
Yeah.
I think it was Rosalie that said in her comment that she's not a Star Wars person. Primates aren't for me. But what I think of primates the exact opposite for chimpanzees. I find them super rewarding, super fun, and everything. I think there may also be a bit of bitterness and sour grapes on my part, because I'm not going to name names, I'm not going to name places, but where my
off camera, you wait. Woof.
Yeah, you've started the volcanic eruption. Where my food prep kitchen was, after months of asking for new substrate, where my food prep kitchen was, a dump truck, 3 dump truck loads of fresh new substrate was dumped right outside my door, to the point that I had to climb around it
to get in the way a bit.
God, it was in the way. I was told I was to keep it tidy and clean up because it's outside my kitchen. So naturally, I assumed that it was for my animals, because I've been asking for it and I've now been told to clean it up. So I took some. Took some for some of the animals on my section to make their enclosure look nicer and also be nicer for them.
Yeah.
And I received a stern slap on the wrist for doing so, because this substrate was earmarked for the primate team.
See, this is the superiority. I think.
This is the primate team's bedding that's been dumped right outside my door, to the point that I have to climb over or climb around to get into my food prep kitchen. I've been asking for months.
Yeah.
I have to tidy this up. I'm not allowed to use it. So, and this is just because this episode would gone way too long if I listed the entire.
He's not bitter, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know, the 15 years of worth of journal entries that are just primates did this today, primates did that today. Primates slighted me in this way. Damn the primate team! I didn't get home till 6:30 because they kept me there waiting. So if we'll cut it short there, but that's an idea of the kind of slights that primate teams have done against.
Do you want me to add something to that as well? That pile, when it actually started to decompose a little,
which it did, decomposed because the primate team didn't use it, and I wasn't allowed to.
Regardless of that. It was actually the first time I saw dogs vomit slime mold, which is a really cool slime mold.
So silver linings.
Silver lining was I got to pour through that and go, dogs vomit slime mold. Brilliant.
We'll move on to your second question, because otherwise that one can go on for too long. So his second question is, what are your thoughts on bird feeders? I'm a big bird nerd. It's actually how I discovered the podcast way back in 2022, and found myself away for Easter with my family recently in an Airbnb, in which the host, also a bird enthusiast, encouraged us to put out seed for the cockatoos, king parrots, and lorikeets.
Oh.
The king parrots in particular were so tame.
Stunning birds.
Yeah. They were happy to eat out of my hand. I allowed them to. It was thrilling. Make no mistake, though, I am in no way in favour of feeding wild animals normally, but bird feeders seem like a grey area, and I'd be curious on your opinion. Yeah, they are a bit of a grey area.
Yeah,
I think it's because you're hands off, though. You're not littering the place. You're actively littering the place with chips and other rubbish.
Very much so, yeah.
For a seagull to become a pest species, this is healthy food for these animals.
I think I've made my point on this one. Is I don't put food out at the moment because of bird flu and because of rats.
Yeah.
If I could quite happily put bird food out and know that I'm not going to encourage rats into the garden, I would be doing it, because I used to love putting the food out. I've actually toyed with the idea of putting. I really like those ones that you can stick onto the window.
Yes,
and you can see through them, because we get long-tailed tits that just come into our garden. They follow the line of the forest along, and just periodically throughout the day they'll turn up, and they used to come down to the feeder all the time when we were feeding them. But I'd quite like them to turn up on the top window, just by the bedroom window, because we get the blue tits and the great tits getting all the spider webs from around the window frame on the outside. So yeah, I like the idea of feeding birds from a bird feeder, but not so much, like encouraging them with rubbish, basically.
Yeah.
What you're talking about there, where they're doing it as part of a thing, I think as long as it is maintained, so that birds are healthy and you're not spreading any diseases, so the bowls and everything that they're fed from are kept clean, is an important part of it. The other thing is making sure that food is there all the time. because those birds will become dependent on it. And so unless you want to be in a situation where those birds are going to turn up, it's probably not so much of an issue in parts of Australia because they don't obviously have the same massive climatic shift of like temperature wise, where a bird has to try and find as much food to basically survive the winter.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets cold around Melbourne and places like that, but nowhere near the level it gets temperature wise here. But I think as long as that food is there consistently, so those birds, if they are dependent on it, are not going to starve when they come round to that garden and go, oh, well, the food was here last week.
Yeah.
And then it's then there one week, not the next, that sort of thing. It needs to be there because you've got to realize that you're making a commitment now to those animals to keep them maintained. I don't see a problem with that as long as you follow those two main things. But the way you can get around it is just by having a water source, I think, is the best thing. And especially in Australia, having a water source is enough to just get birds coming into your garden to be able to find something to drink, enough to be able to survive through the harshest dry periods. What we used to do, I can remember in Adelaide, we used to get red rump parrots turning up if we didn't mow the top area of the garden and let it go to seed. And they'd come down and they'd eat the seed of the grass. So yet again, having a no-mow-may sort of situation, that can massively help out the wild animals and just sculpting your garden to be as wildlife friendly.
Yeah.
And if you get really lucky, and this is a weird sort of thing, by having a bird feeder, you obviously encourage raptors to turn up. And I've always wanted to have like a sparrowhawk find my garden and, become its buffet to an extent, and then be able to feed it, not other birds, but, feed it meat or something. Because I'd love the idea of having birds of prey come down to my garden as well. That'd be awesome. But I think it's a grey area.
It is a grey area.
Yeah.
But, ultimately, you're not creating a pest species and you're not feeding them junk.
No, that's the main things. Yeah.
And if you can, and also the other main thing, of course, which you've already mentioned, to be fair, is keeping these things, the containers and the bowls clean.
Yeah.
And if you can do it in a way which prevents pests like, I don't like using the word pest.
Well, they are pests in that situation.
Keep ways in which you can keep rats out from being encouraged, and that's great.
Yeah.
It's sorry for the long email. Like I said, I've been meaning to write for a while, and the things I wanted to say just kept piling up. Keep up the great work as always. May the 4th be with you. Yes,
and with you.
P.S. While I didn't get on board with the artwork contest for last year, I thought Drew's recent orangutan was phenomenal. Never apologise for a long email. We love them. May the 4th be with you too, always.
This is the way.
This is the way. Hello there. Drew's Ornithon it's
a nice one.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So that's Matt Getty. So our next email comes to us from Ren, who says, "Hi, the cupboard cabinet counsellors and co. Due to my favourite day of the year recently passing, April 22nd, my birthday and Earth Day, Earth Day as I call it. Well,
Earth Day.
A very happy birthday to you, Ren.
Indeed.
I was graced by the lovely gift of Drew's artwork on a lovely T-shirt. You're the one.
You're the one who bought it.
I have a question to pose as well. Of all extant species, which ones would you love to see a house-sized version of? You do not need to survive the witnessing of this marvel, and the square cube law does not exist.
Well,
oh, sorry. So I interpreted this wrong. I was thinking house-sized version, as in like scaled down to pet form, but you mean an animal that is the size of a house. Okay, happy birthday.
Oh, I don't know. I read that as how you just said it.
Yeah, but then he says square cube law does not exist.
Yeah, but
you do not survive. You do not need to survive the witnessing of this marvel.
Okay, so we're making Godzilla basically.
We're making animals into kaiju. And then he says happy birthday whenever it is. Yours is the next birthday, isn't it?
Yes.
It's in August.
Yes.
Mine was in January. Drew's is in November.
Well, there you go. Yeah. By the passage of time and the way that numbers work, I believe that is correct.
Yes. A house-sized version of an animal.
Well, first off, I'd like to start with, we don't see what image is got on the shirt, so I'd be intrigued to know what artwork have you gone with for the shirt or garment, which is available on our Teemill store for any of you who are interested in following in the footsteps there.
Yeah.
What animal have you gone for then? I mean, what are you just basically making into a kaiju?
Do you know what? I wouldn't mind making. I don't know, because I was about to say I wouldn't mind making my cat Artemis house size,
Catzilla.
but then I'd miss her sitting on the sofa with me. So no, I wouldn't. Let's go with some sort of weird. Do you know, maybe something like
Oh dear, what's he got?
Ambopteryx longiracum.
So it is basically a Godzilla character at this point. Right, okay. It's not fire breathing though.
No, but who cares about that? It's still a dragon.
I'm gonna go for maximum destruction.
Okay.
I'm gonna pick an animal that will not care what is around it. This animal will demolish cities. It will not care that it's done it. And it will have the same continuous look of on its face that makes them so brilliant. I'm going to say sulcata tortoise.
Oh yes.
Now I know, is it Gamera? I think is a giant tortoise-looking thing in Godzilla folklore.
Yeah.
But I think if you pick a giant like a sulcata tortoise, they've got the attitude of you're in my way, get out of my way. Move, expletive, get out of the way, by just ploughing through things. So if you imagined a house-sized sulcata in a city, every house is just getting ploughed down. It'll just go through them. It won't care. So I'm going for maximum damage.
That's good. That's good answer, yeah.
And plus you could ride it and it'd be fun.
Interesting. Ren, you've not mentioned what
you would go with.
Expand to house size. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to hear what you and others.
I think that's a fun future question there.
Yeah,
that one. Take note.
Yeah.
So well, that's our emails for this week. Although we do have some more that we will get to.
We're a bit behind because of
the last couple of weeks. So but we will get to you, and we will certainly try and get back to you as much as we can. So you can send us an email to the historycupboard@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can get into contact with us on our Facebook, our YouTube page, and obviously even on our TikTok page as well, and Instagram, where we're always floating around all sorts of different things. But that brings us nicely to talking about our Patreons, I think. So let's have a look at that.
Every week, we like to give a little love back by shouting out the names of our wonderful Patreon supporters.
That's right. These are the cupboard dwellers who are kind enough to support us through a monetary contribution, for which we are eternally grateful and grateful beyond words.
And those people are, of course, Fogtober, Jen Greenhall, Connie P, Chelsea McKee, Nick to Nick,
Owen Cox,
and Matt Geddy.
Guys, your financial contributions are actively helping us out here in the Natural History Cupboard in a myriad of ways, including developing our new studio, planning excursions and being able to go out and film on location, considering technical upgrades, and actually making the jump from a solely audio-based podcast to the now growing YouTube channel. And we really can't thank you enough for that.
Now, we appreciate all of our cupboard dwellers and the support you offer us through listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. But if you feel we've earned it and you're considering joining our Patreon, there are two options through which you can do so.
That's the Nature Nerds and the Animal Ambassador tiers, which you can find on the Patreon website or links through our social media as well. And each one having different benefits for you to enjoy.
And now back to Gareth and Erin in the studio.
So that big thank you to our Patreons and all that you guys do. And that pretty much brings us to the end of this week's episode, I think, Erin.
It does.
So first off, a reminder, like I say, if you want to go and get yourself a fantastic shirt or hoodie or various garment with the podcast stuff on it, you can go to our fantastic Teemill store. to our Tiamat store. Yeah.
He's a celestial.
Well, it's no, it's a dragon long before that. Anyway, or if you're a D&D player, it's a multi-headed dragon. If it's Babylonian. Anyway, that's not the point. Go to our Teemill store if you want to get fantastic merch like this and help the podcast out as well. But that pretty much brings us to the end of this week's episode. So yeah, big thank you, Aaron.
You're very welcome.
You're alive. That's the main thing.
I'm alive.
Good.
I've risen.
Yeah. And a big thank you to you at home for listening. And we'll see you next time here in the Natural History Cupboard. Bye.
Bye.
No, here you go. Where do teenage crows go after high school? Don't overthink it. College. Yeah.
Really easy.
No, I've got more. What do crows drink to stay awake?
Cause?
Coffee.
Oh.
As you've probably guessed, have got core in there somewhere. So yeah, they're bad. Anyway.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. In a good way.